Everybody, and welcome to another Bite Size Branding live stream. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we hear
Checking
you
in
good.
with my team.
Yes.
Awesome. Everybody, welcome again to another live show. I'd like to welcome, as always, Grant Thom and a very special guest that we have with us today, Arielle Bowers from Two Giraffes. Welcome, guys.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Bernard. Great to be back.
Awesome. I'll let you guys do a little intro, Grant. As always, we love having you here. The token head fire starter. Give us a little background on being a head fire starter.
Well, yeah, basically my title around the world has been known as a head fire starter, and often people ask what that's all about. And what I'm there is to take ideas and get them to become reality. So I help things to get started, I help campaigns to come live, I help brands become relevant for customers at the end of the day. So therefore, people who have ideas and dreams, we make it reality. And that's where we work with the likes of video, which we're going to talk about today. But anything to do with branding, as you well know, Bernard, we like to unbundle on the show. And because there's so much, and because we're two professionals, we like controversy, we like comments, we like to get very passionate. So once again, we like people to like the show, share the show, and send us questions naturally. But that's a little intro, but I think it's over to our guest in the sense of hearing more about her background and her experience as to what she's going to talk about today.
Hey everyone, I'm Arielle. I'm from Two Giraffes. We are a full-service video production and animation studio here in Sydney. We work with everything from your large TVCs to your theater ads, to your multi-platform video campaigns. Being a full-service video agency means we do everything from the creative strategy to the script writing, to the casting, production, animation, editing, everything required to get those videos out there for you. And as two branding experts know, video is absolutely essential in this time, and it's changing every single day. So it's always good to have these conversations and discuss the new trends and how we can make sure we're really utilizing video to the best of its ability.
Nice.
Fantastic. Well, video is becoming 40% of the communication channel, and therefore it's so important that we bring those personal messages to the front. So I'm very keen, Bernard, to open the show and get started with our question. Normally we do 5 minutes per topic, but because we got a guest, we're going to extend it for an extra 2 minutes to 7 minutes. And there we go. We've got the countdown. Have you got your buzzer ready, Bernard?
It's all ready to go. Hopefully it won't play a trick on me. Look, the volume's up. Everything is apparently ready to go. The only thing that's not ready to go.
Every show we mess with the buzzer.
The only thing that's not ready to go is a stand. So I'm just going to be like the whole show. Look, we got some great topics we're covering off today. We put a bit of a generic name title to the show today, leverage your brand with video, because there's just so many aspects in which you can use video within your brand. So the key things we're going to talk about today, we've got 3 topics as always with our live shows. We're going to cover off looking at how the TVC market has evolved and what's developed and changed in the TVC market. We're going to talk about podcasts and how to leverage your brand using podcasts and get it online to engage with your potential customers or current customers to add value. And the last topic is, who can remember the last topic?
TVC, the relevance of TVC.
We already talked about TVCs, Aria?
Explainer videos.
Explainer videos, that's the one.
Of course.
Explainer videos. So we're going to talk about.
Do I get an A?
You do get an A for Aria. So we're going to talk about explainer videos, and we're going to talk about the different channels in which you can create an explainer video. A lot of people use animation, but it's not the only way you can put together an explainer video. So we're going to highlight that and talk about that a little bit more. So I think we're ready to go. I think everyone's excited to talk about the TVCs and the evolution of the TVC market. If you're both ready to go, I'll hit the clock when you are.
Fantastic. Let's get going.
Ready? Boom. There we go.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, it's happened. It started. So Arielle, tell us a little bit more about your thoughts of the TVC market, how it's evolving and how it's changing.
I mean, as everyone knows, TVCs were the be-all of video for such a long time. If you wanted to get your brand out there you put a lot of money and a lot of effort and usually a lot of agency time into creating this one TVC that was going to represent who you are. But that has been significantly changing lately. And now it's really about shifting that money into a more multi-platform approach, since so many of your audience is now on social media and other networks like that.
So just to be clear, TVC stands for TV commercial, right? Television commercial.
Yes, television commercial.
In case people don't know, I thought I might mention it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a very good point. So one of the things that I think is important to mention about TVC is the fact that in the old days, it wasn't about the cost of the production. It was about having enough money with the view to afford the flightings, because repetition and consistency were the two key factors to make sure that your TV advert got seen and heard and remembered. Because there's a thing in television called noting. When you've walked away from the television and the advert has flighted, how long do you remember the advert? Can you remember the next day, a week later, a month later? There's some adverts that just stick in your mind, and there's some that you just forget within 10 seconds. So that's very, very important, is to create that. So that funding was very important. But at the same time, it was a great role model to be creative and to create engagement with a view to create mental pictures of brands or destinations. That has naturally changed, because now it's about giving customers exactly what they want, the way they want it, rather than the way you perceive they want it. And that's very important.
It is. And really, like you said, in that case with the TVC, a lot of times it was about how much airtime can you get? How much can you get a certain jingle or a certain message to just go across and across and across the TV. But audience and customers are wanting a lot more from brands these days, and they want to make sure that they're speaking directly to them. So if you just took that one TVC and threw it all over your website and your Facebook and your LinkedIn, people would be quite actually frustrated with you and your brand, because they expect to get personalized content about your brand based on which platform they are on. And they expect that level of service now. So really, it's shifted how we've done advertisement completely, because we have to think about that ahead of time. What platforms are our clients on, and how are we going to create individual styles of advertisement to fit?
Yeah. So but another point that's also very important with television ads is to create it more engaging with the view to drive traffic to social media platforms. You know, we used to get SMS codes with the view to get that participation, just to create some form of measurable analytics that the advert did work at that particular time. But it's now about driving traffic, and it's about a bit of edutainment. There's that word again, but not
Grant's favorite word.
Educate people, it's about entertaining people to create memorability. And it's also about reward advertising. Why should they pay attention for 30 seconds when they can go and make coffee or whatever the case would be? So it is about that whole hook mechanism that is designed in the film structure.
I would almost say that our new situation of a TVC that we're seeing is our YouTube pre-roll ads. Now trying to get, because they can cut the pre-roll ads after that 5-second mark. So now, kind of like what you're talking about, instead of them going off and getting the coffee or grabbing the cereal, same with YouTube. How do you keep them to stay past that 5-second mark so that they're really engaged and watch the rest of your ad? So I think that same situation with the TVC is now being seen in this new form of advertisement. Would you agree?
I do agree. And I think that is where the social media angles altogether, but it's to find that social media audience, because in social media, it's a pull mechanism, in the sense I pull the content that I want to view, where on television, it's a push medium where they push the content onto you. So it's got those two differences.
I do like it though. In YouTube, when they don't give me too much information before the 5 seconds, they're like, "Are you going to really miss out on this thing?" And skip. And I'm like, maybe I am. Maybe this time, I don't know. I kind of like how they create a little bit of interactivity there, instead of just being like, "Here's a regular ad," and you can skip it after 5 seconds. And you see that sometimes with car advertising, that it's pretty much the exact same ad they would run on a television commercial, and they're just playing on you, and you just like skip. I know what's going to happen. The car's going to drive around the road for about 30 seconds, and then I get a phone call, and then it'll tell me the cost of the car and next ad. And
Yeah.
you can't use the medium in the same way. Definitely leveraging that interactivity there is like getting your audience to interact. I have a question. Do you think that you run, do you think you can run less TV commercial airtime by diversifying the media channels? Like, do you think you need to have so many ads playing on the TV or so often playing on the TV if you have it then playing like a different ad playing on Facebook, playing on YouTube, playing on et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
You say, I'm going to say yes or no. And I'll tell you why. I think you can be a more in terms of your PVR that you can buy, in the sense of the more viewership. So if you can be more selective, I think it will work. I think a downfall is the fact that TV stations are packing in so many adverts, up to 15 ads per interruption of a show. They basically go away for a very long time because it's a long time to come back. It's up to 7 minutes. So I think that's where your advert gets missed. I think social media has a strong pull. Bring it home, Arielle.
Yes, I mean, it's everything we just talked about. We need those multiple touch points. In order to get that brand awareness, we need to be seeing it on all the different platforms. So even if you've seen the TV commercial, you want to be reminded via Facebook, in that YouTube ad, maybe on Instagram. This is how you're really going to get to your audience. You can't just stick to that old TVC mentality. And a lot of the younger generation aren't even watching
TV. I don't have
anymore.
Yeah,
so depending on what audience you're after, you really need to think about if they're actually going to be seeing that or not, and where should your money be spent to actually get those views by the right people.
Okay, can I ask one more question? I know we're supposed to wrap it up because there's only 3, 2.
Here we go. Ding, 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 ding.
Okay, look, I do have one more question though. You know, like when so much money is invested into things like the Super Bowl advertising, right? And without even using social media, because of how entertaining those ads are, they end up on social media because people either record it using their phone or they go and find it on YouTube and then they reshare it. Do you think that sometimes people lack the inspiration or the initiative to create advertising that people would naturally share themselves rather than relying on a multi-channel campaign?
Well, I have an answer.
You go, and I'll
so
wrap it up.
I think that a lot of clients are not brave with their message and their advertising. They're not prepared to take a risk, to be a little bit maverick, to do something with to be a little bit controversial. And that is a lack of confidence, or their culture doesn't sustain it, or their budget doesn't sustain it, or they as people on the ground don't have it. So the bravery doesn't exist for everybody.
I mean, you hit it right on the nose. It's a mix of, we go in a lot of times with strategy and they want to be bold. They want to be out of the box. They want to be creative. But by the time it goes through legal and compliance, it goes through all the different managers and whatnot, it ends up getting watering down to that same style of commercial that you see day in and day out. And then on top of that, in order a lot of times to create something to that magnitude and really be creative, you need to take those actual proper steps through the journey. And a lot of clients just do not have the budget for that anymore.
All the time, right?
Yeah, so it's easier now, I think, for a lot of brands just to stay in their little safety zone. Not that they should, but I think that's what ends up happening.
Yeah.
Do you think, mentioning legal, do you think that their points are always necessarily valid? Because there's clearly other people that are doing those kind of ads that are pushing the boundaries, that are being a little bit disruptive. And then you have some companies and they run it through legal, and legal's like, no. Do you think they're being overly safe?
Yeah, well, that's their job. If you've got a legal department, that's their job, is to be overly safe. Their job is to make sure that you're not in trouble. So therefore, they're not considering any form of how nice it is. They're just making sure what is the comeback and what do they have to do to defend it.
Is that killer cool concept then?
Always ruins everything somewhere down the line.
Awesome, guys. Did you have any last little notes that you wanted to throw in on this topic, or are we happy to move on to the next?
Well, my final note on it is the fact that I don't think that TVC should be thrown out the window yet. I think it's a case of think creatively on how to produce something with the view to create engagement, with a view to create memorability, with a view to create something that is not risque or put your name or your brand at risk, I think it's more it's a case of do something with the view that it becomes a conversational piece.
Cool.
And I would like to end with the fact that even though it's being seen and everyone can see that online advertising is so important these days, I think a lot of brands and larger corporations aren't understanding that the budget should be actually the same and thought of in the process for your YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn and website ads should actually have the same care and dedication that you would put towards a TVC. And it shouldn't be seen as, oh, that's online, so we should half the budget and half the creative. Where the TVC, we need to do all this. It really need to change that thinking and realize that there are lots of eyes, just as many, if not more, going on to that online content. And you should put that same care and dedication that you would have for a TVC.
Agreed.
Nice. Yeah, totally. 100%. Awesome. That was fantastic. So the next topic we had in line was talking about branded podcasts. So, what we're going to kind of nut out in this one is, what is the value of building a branded podcast? And we'll also talk a little bit about how do you actually market your podcast. I think that's a challenge that people always think about. They want to create a podcast, but they're like, who's going to watch it? How are we going to get it out there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And also, why do a branded podcast?
Yeah, true.
So many reasons.
I think something as well, Arielle, if you could cover off what you mean by a branded podcast as well. I think that might be something that people might ask, because they're like, I know what a podcast is, but what's the difference? What do you mean by branded podcast? Yeah, cool. Are we ready? Are we ready?
We're setting the clock.
There it is.
We didn't have that same big dramatic.
The same big dramatic start. Do you want me to do it again? I can do it again. Watch.
Yeah, let's get dramatic. Come on.
Are you ready, guys?
And
dun. There you go.
You can tell she does video. She's already directing.
Yes, branded podcasts. Podcasts are, just really taking over, and they're just so amazing, right? If you're on your way to work, you're doing the dishes. There's just so many ways and times that you can listen to a podcast. But what is a branded podcast? A branded podcast can be done in a couple different ways, but it's when an actual corporation, a brand, decides to produce a podcast. Now, they can either fully make it about their brand and tell stories within that sector, or they can more or less fund it to then be represented as a certain type of brand to associate themselves with the type of podcast that they are funding. Cool. So a branded podcast isn't the ads in between. That's not a branded podcast. It's when the brand is actually the one behind the podcast itself.
Is that something like, I used to watch this podcast ages ago and I loved it, and then they canceled it. Bring it back. It was called Buzz Out Loud, but it was a CNET podcast show.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the same kind of concept? So it had its own standalone brand, but it was CNET's show essentially.
One of the things I think is very important for brands right now is to get into storytelling. I think storytelling is huge right now. It's to tell your story. It's to tell the story of your clients or your customers, or to tell interesting stories where your brand is associated, or feel-good stories. Because right now, there's that word again, edutainment is what people are after, in the sense that they want to be educated, they want to be entertained, because they want to have something with the view to like, share, discuss, talk to, refer to. Those are the kind of things that are now becoming penetrable for brands to take initiative to become household names. It's the Ellen Show became a household name due to the value that she did. It's now defragging completely, in the sense that now people are doing their own shows, and therefore I think it's imperative that brands think about this process and platform very seriously.
Yeah, and brands can be seen so often as just like, it's this brand, this entity. And podcasts can really humanize a brand. That brand all of a sudden becomes a friend. It becomes the trusted advisor. You're listening in the car and you're nodding along. You feel like you're a part of the conversation. And humanizing a brand like that can be a amazing selling point to individuals. just giving them that authority within their field and that trust that brand so cherish.
I think also what you said there is pretty poignant. Like it's also about being a culture fit. Like if you get the right kind of people together and you create the right kind of group of people within this podcast, it can become a culture fit for people. So people are like, oh, this brand resonates with me because I'm just like these people in the podcast. Yeah. So I think that's a really cool thing.
About that humanizing is the fact that I think through podcasting, you can learn so much more about the brand that you could not do through a 30-second TV commercial.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Therefore, you can really expand on so many levels and create that reputation and consistency of mentioning with the view to get that brand mentioned and performed to create memorability.
Well, think about this, right? When you are paying and putting all this into a blog or even sometimes into a video, mostly blogs, people can just look at the titles, look at the images, scroll through. The thing about a podcast is they are invested, they are hearing from the start all the way to the end. So you really have a captive audience. And there's not many times that you can say that you have a fully captive audience listening to your story and just implementing that credibility and that trust throughout the whole entire episode and podcast itself.
And that's definitely what CNET did for me. Like they're already synonymous with being such a good review platform and knowledge platform for technology, but Buzz Out Loud made it so digestible to get that information. And then I was like more connected with the content they produce, and they became more of an authority, even though I already knew they were very much the authority. It just reinforced it. And then it also gave me, I was going to call it disposable, but just like tidbits, things that I could bring up in conversation and say, hey, have you heard about this? Or did you see the change? Or did you hear about this coming out? And because, in particular with technology, it's such a hot topic all the time of what's the next thing that's coming out, what's the next big thing. It made it very easy to bring that into your life, into your conversation. And the other thing I liked about it is it's non-intrusive. Like I could be doing work and it could be playing in the background, or like you said, I'm on the way to work and I'm on public transport. I can listen to it. There's just so many ways you can consume it. Whereas if it's a blog, you can only really read it when you have the time to sit down and read it. So,
yeah.
But I think it's also so you can put the voice to the face, and you see that these brands are alive, or the platforms are alive, and you can see the production execution that is actually quite polished. I think that plays a crucial role. That this is real. This is real time. This is reality. This is authenticness. And that's what brands want nowadays. Consumer wants authentic brands in their lives. They don't want make-believe or plastic brands because the world is going against plastic.
Yeah. Who's the person behind the curtain, right?
And as you talked about, even though what you're just talking about, a lot of times it's educating within their own sector. Some brands are actually funding topics that aren't necessarily about them whatsoever, but it puts them in a more trusted light. So, there's a lot of financial sectors that are doing a podcast on women in business and featuring amazing women. It's not all financial. It's not really about their financial sector, but by elevating and promoting these amazing women, it's showing that they care and that this is something that's important to the brand, which again is another way to humanize it and create that trust. And that relationship with their clients.
It also gives you exposure because it's topical, and it's relevant to people. So people will pay attention because you're doing something that actually matters to them, instead of just generically talking about, here we are talking about, finance again. And the other thing I wanted to say in my last 12 seconds, we could just talk forever on these topics. These topics are good. Do you think more CEOs should get in front of the camera? I feel like CEO culture is something that people are really interested in, but you never really see.
Ding.
That's a really intense alarm there.
Yeah, we did it on purpose.
You have to shut it off somehow.
Cut. So what do you think about that? Do you think more CEOs should get in front of the camera? I think it's not, like, for me personally, it's something that I would like to see a lot more of, is getting more exposure to the people who actually run the brand and their thoughts and their feelings, etc.
Well, one of the things that I've noticed that a lot of people don't like being in front of the camera, in the sense that they don't like it. But I think what's important about that is that CEOs are normally the ones that got the greatest vision as to where the business is going. And I think that's what people would like to hear more than anything else.
I mean, of course, I do agree with that, and it's amazing to get these minds behind in a podcast where you can really get those in-depth conversations happening. But I also think it takes many of people from a company to create a brand, and there's in general just hearing all these different individual stories are amazing. And what's great about what you just said in podcasts is that you can go real niche into so many different topics and really reach so many different audiences. So yes, of course we want to hear from more CEOs, but I also want to hear from, their main marketing directors and their PR firms. And I want to hear from their head salesperson on what they've done to double their business during COVID. There's so many amazing people that you can learn so much from. And I think that's where podcasts have been just absolutely fabulous. Yeah.
But I think you can also learn from the people on the ground as well, because those are the ones that really count sometimes. And sometimes they've got some great ideas, but they never get heard. This is a great mechanism to bring them in, because you know what? Those little ideas can actually change directions.
Well, all I'm going to end with podcasts is, we do branded podcasts ourselves at Two Giraffes and for our clients. And it's just such an amazing new channel to reach your audience, to build that trust and become that that authority figure. And if you haven't thought about doing it before, it's definitely a channel you should be thinking about for the new year.
Yeah.
So what is, just to kind of round it off, what value does it add going to somebody like you guys to help put together the branded podcast?
I mean, in the end, podcast is a long form storytelling, and it's so essential that you don't just jump in. And I mean, depending on your size and your corporation, it needs to fit within your brand identity, and it needs to fulfill a purpose, and you need to know where you're trying to go with this journey. So we're able to actually sit down and do a full podcast strategy session on how to accomplish that, and what type of talent to bring in, and how to set up the segments. What kind of audience are you going after? Are they busy moms that only have 15 minutes, or are they commuters that have a 45-minute drive? So there's so many different things that you can do to actually set up to get the best success for your podcast.
Cool.
My closing comment to the whole story of branded podcasts is the fact is great structure. Because once you've got structure, you're not going to be all over the show, and therefore every show is going to be controlled in the sense of its entry point, its middle point, and its delivery point of a particular branded show. So I think for structure is important. Storytelling is you can't ever come to an end. So yeah, I think it's a great form of getting brands to come along.
Just like our show, super structured.
Except for the clock. The clock doesn't always want to.
Yeah, this whole 7 minute thing has been real strict.
Hey, take it easy on the show. Awesome. Well, let's jump into the last topic, talking about explainer videos. And I'd love to get some of your insight, Arielle, on different methodologies to producing an explainer video, because you mentioned something before the show, and I'd love for you to kind of fill in everybody now during the show. And then we'll talk a bit more about explainer videos and the value of putting them out into the market. We all ready to go?
Yeah.
Should I make it epic again?
Yeah,
are you ready for your final 7 minutes?
7 minutes.
Oh my God. Okay, you ready to go?
Okay.
Yeah.
Go.
Good.
Oh, it's happening. Okay. Explainer videos. Oh my gosh. They are one of the most amazing things you can do for your company. And the great thing about explainer videos is they have a lot longer of a retention rate as well, because a lot of times what you're explaining is something that's an integral part about your business. You're explaining your services, you're explaining your products, you're explaining your company culture, you're explaining your brand and what you stand for. So really the backbone of an explainer video is being able to get across to your audience a very succinct, well organized and structured message about the topic that you're putting in hand, and that can be such a streamlined, amazing, and strong way to put across those requirements.
One of the things that's proven through explainer videos is that it's been researched that people pay more attention to the details that you are educating them to than any other video that is produced, because you're actually really showing the intricacies of the inside track to your particular business.
Okay, two questions then. Two questions. Time. How long do you think it should be? And my second question is, as always forget my second question. I get so hyped on the first question, I forget what my second question is. Oh, second question is...
was it about the animation or live action?
I was going to ask about animation live action, because nobody really talks about that. But I did have another question. But let's so talk about time, and then let's talk about live action versus animation.
And I want to also explain.
Go ahead.
Explain a video that I've ever seen, but go ahead.
He's going to give an example.
Okay. Look, I'm not going to give you the best answer here, Bernard, because I think it's how long is a piece of string. It depends. What are we explaining? What platform is it going on? Who is our audience? Because all those really is what creates the correct duration for a video. Yeah. So I don't think there is a correct duration. I think certain educational content, when you're really explaining something, let's say it's a very expensive product, and they're picking between your $10,000 product and another $10,000 similar product. They really want to get into the intricacies and the technical details that will allow them to make a formal decision between you and another brand. So you can have a longer video. Whereas if you're just confronting someone on their Facebook page and they're not actually at that point of sale, you want to have a shorter, more succinct video, because you want to get your message across right away. Explain your service or your product or who you are in a super succinct, engaging manner, so that you can keep their attention and they stop scrolling.
I think the answer about time is that the time must take for as long as the time is required in order to get the explain part done. Because at the end of the day, if you rush it, you're going to miss vital parts. If you drag it out, people are going to switch off. So as long as it is realistic and the tone is got a pace, then I think it's important. Let me explain quickly what I saw as the best explainer video ever. Was a gentleman in London. He made these leather bags for men who would use it for business. And what was happening is that everyone loved these bags so much that the competition started to copy his bag. And what he did was he went and created an explainer video on how to make his bag. So he went and he took it from the template making to the punch holes to the zips. But what he did was clever. He would go and say, I'm going to use this zip. Now you can buy that zip because it's cheaper, but it will rust. Mine won't rust. And he was explaining that way. And through that process, he was able to enhance and educate the quality he brought in his bag to those of the people that were ripping him off and using cheaper products at the end of the day. I thought that was fantastic. It was brave.
It is fantastic.
It was controversial, but at the same time, it knocked out the competition because people said, I don't want to buy that cheap bag. I'm going to buy the proper one now. And he knocked them out. I thought that was fantastic.
And there are so many creative ways, and that's such a really beautiful, strong example of how you can utilize an explainer video to promote your product. I think another side to see an explainer video are the companies that have a really difficult time putting their services across. Is it really, do you feel like you're always giving a very long-winded answer? Do you feel like it's quite complicated or has lots of verbiage that people don't understand? Do you feel like your salespeople or ones going out there don't know how to get it across correctly? That is where explainer videos can just really evolutionize a business. by having proper explainer videos, because that, you know, a business like ourselves, a video production company, can bring in professional script writers and videographers and animators and make sure that they're turning sometimes 10 pages worth of content that they give us into this 90-second video, because we're able to see, you know, sit across outside of the company and see what is really essential and what can the everyday person understand, and what kind of message do you need to get across to explain that service or product.
Correct.
So you could also use it for internal use as much as you do for external.
Oh, 100%, for sure.
Yeah.
You know, you could say this is how you load your documents onto the server. You know, incredible stuff.
Wow, okay, so excited about explaining this.
Let's talk about, when do we bring animation into an explainer video?
Oh, well, I mean, animation is such an amazing way to utilize for an explainer video. One of the reasons animation is so good is because animation in general, you can really infuse your brand identity within it, because you're utilizing your brand colors, you're utilizing your brand fonts, and you can really, the sky is the limit. So not to pick on financial services, but sometimes, you know, a financial services explainer can feel a little bit dry if you're just talking about currency or this or that. And how do you really put live action to that? Whereas when you do animation and you're talking about skyrocketing your financial, you know, platform, you can have a piggy on a rocket flying in the air. So you can create visual representations of what you're trying to accomplish, and it doesn't have to fit in the real world. And it can be such a powerful way to get across the information that you need to.
One of the things I find with animation is the fact that when you're trying to explain a process that is actually quite complex, to put it into a visual form really just gets the viewer to understand what you're trying to get across or how it works without having to get too technical. I think that's the best part to interject in animation.
Well, it says, I have a little fact here. It says viewers retain 95% of a message when viewed in an explainer video compared to 10% of a message when reading copy. It's that mix of having voiceover and then usually text on screen and visuals on screen. You're really getting so many different senses happening all at the same time that your clients are able to actually retain what you're delivering to them at, you know, a way larger capacity than if it's just content on a website or in a blog.
Maybe we do the next show animated.
I'm in.
Yeah, I'm in too. That would be cool. I want to see what I look like as like.
I want to be an action hero.
Yeah, we'll give you a cape, everything, you know.
Yeah.
Every time you say edutainment, you fly off the screen. Awesome. Guys, that was a rapid fire session, and we did blow out every single one because the conversation was just too good. It was just too good to cut it. But I hope.
Yeah, and thanks for having me on here. It was nice.
Absolutely. It was fantastic. Thank you very much for joining us. And Grant, as always, thank you for joining us. We had people coming in and out of the show the whole time. So hopefully everyone that jumped in got a ton of value out of it. As always, viewers, we want you to please comment. We're looking for challenges. We're looking for things to make us go, how would we talk about this? Or what are our views on this particular subject matter? So please do share your questions and anything that's kind of picking at your brain that you want to know. And we'll be back again in another 2 weeks doing another live show, Grant and myself. And then we'll have another special guest. And as always, our special guests are so excellent. They just give so much value, extra value to the show and extra time too. But we're always excited to have them on. Arielle, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Absolutely.
Arielle, we would like to invite you back because I think we haven't touched the subjects. I think there's so much more to talk about video. Video is becoming 40% of the communication channel, and there's so much that can be done in video, and it is.
Oh my gosh, yes. We can talk maybe next time more around some of the trends that are happening. You know, TikTok is now in Australia. What does that mean for your brand? Should you be jumping on it? There's shoppable videos on Instagram where you can actually click and get items straight from video. There's just so many amazing new ways you can be utilizing video for your brand. And it's really just about picking the right ones for your product or service and your audience. But
Correct.
if you are informed of all these different things, then you can make a informed selection.
100%.
Awesome.
Can't wait.
Should we just start the second show right now? We'll just start like part 2. Just go. We'll just keep going.
Well, as a big producer, I'm actually jetting straight off to a location recce as we speak. So.
Oh wow. Well, awesome, guys. Have an amazing Friday. As always, thank you everyone who joined us on the live show. We will be reposting this and sharing this across all the different channels, and sharing the video with you as well, Arielle. Thank you very much, everyone. Have an amazing Friday and an amazing weekend, and we'll catch you in a couple of weeks. Grant, you got some last words?
You.
I think last words is basically that's one of the things about this show is to keep it live, keep it real, keep it spontaneous, because authentic is all about building brands. And that's what bite-sized branding is all about.
Oh, what a sweetheart. Awesome, guys. Have a great Friday.
Thank you.
Cheers,
Bye.
Bye.